This is the Note Closer Show, where you get the latest developments in distressed note investing and learn the secrets of how you can control millions of dollars worth of property for pennies on the dollar. Get educated and entertained by someone who has closed thousands of deals and lives to support you in achieving the same. Now, here's your host, CEO of We Close Notes, Scott Carson.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Note Closer Show. As always, Scott Carson, excited to be here with you today. And I'm going to tell you right now, you might need to turn that volume meter down a little bit because we're busting the seams with energy here with my special guest today. And she is somebody who is such an expert at something you guys have asked about, subject twos and short sales. We'll get to that in a second. But this lady's gone from slinging grand slams and getting fired at Denny's to knocking grand slam deals out of the park. She's even rehabbing a town basically right now. So we are so jacked up and honored to have America's #1 short sale foreclosure expert. She's known as the queen of short sales, America's most sought after real estate investor, the one, the only, the pink-haired diva. My friend Dwan Bent-Twyford joining us here from Florida or Denver. I think you're in Florida today. Good morning, Dwan.
Oh, thank you, Scott. Gosh, I hear the introduction. It's like, who is he talking about? It can't be me.
Love it. But you've done such an amazing job. Not only you're a big advocate for helping people out there. You've done thousands of deals. You're doing some stuff. How did it all get started? I mean, you had such kind of, we all talk about getting laid off and learning so much from it. But I think starting at rock bottom, you have no place to go but up in a lot of cases, huh?
Yeah, it is true. I was so rock bottom. I'm 62 now. So I turned 21 in 1980. And so I know, if you weren't in the 80s, like you don't really get it, but I worked in nightclubs, I worked in bars, everything was cocaine, champagne. I mean, it was really a decadent time,
Right.
And so I was all in, just everything was so great. And then, I got a little older, got a little more serious. I got married, had a baby, and I'm 30. Now I'm like, I want to be like the Susie Homemaker, the Girl Scout mom, the homeroom mom, and, completely different from before. But my husband and I went through a really unexpected split up when my daughter was only 8 months old. And I honestly, because people always ask me, well, what happened so sudden like that? But he got arrested for selling drugs. And so, and he was in my car. So the car was gone, the husband was gone, the income was gone, and the bank account was frozen. And I had an 8-month-old baby. I was like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do now? So it became apparently clear that he was not getting out, and it was clear that I was going to have to make it on my own. And honestly, I didn't know what to do because I really, honestly, like I said, I got fired from 10. I used to work third shift, 10 at night to 6 in the morning, like the shift where you can pretty much do anything. And I got fired from that. And I was just like looking back at that sign thinking, who gets fired from Denny's in the freaking middle of the night? Like, how bad do you have to be to get fired like 3:45 in the morning? Like, who's that person? But it's me. So I really just made the decision. Like, I knew my ex was not going to be part of the picture, and I didn't want to move back home to Ohio. My parents were, oh, come live back in Ohio. I was like, oh, okay, I'm already living in Florida, and I really like Florida. Yep. So I just really made a decision that I was going to have to figure out a way to work for myself, raise my daughter, and I just had to really put on my big girl pants, really. Yep. And I went through all the crap, anger, mad, just all the stuff you go through. But I discovered real estate investing, and just from meeting people, and I met some guys like, oh, we buy houses, we fix them up, we sell them. And I'm thinking, honestly, I was so naive. I thought that meant we buy houses and we decorate. I didn't know the word rehabbing. I didn't know what that word meant. It's like, oh no, we buy houses, we fix them up, and we sell them. I'm like, oh, fix them up, like decorate, pictures, walls, plans, custom made blinds, paint. I can do that. So I really, honestly, God, Scott, I truly, from the bottom of my soul, thought my first house I was just going to decorate and fix it up. I didn't know that meant kitchens, appliances, plumbing, pressure washing, painting, landscaping. I was so far buried over my head. And I'm doing all this work, and I don't know what I'm doing. I started going to Home Depot. I started to take class. I had to take classes. I don't know how to lay tile. I learned how to lay tile and doing toilets. And at night, when my daughter would be sleeping, I'd be putting together cabinets and making the screens for the windows. I made $22,000 for my first house, and I was like, okay, it's a lot of money. I've never had that much money. My daughter's with me every day. Max has some sucks. I'm going to keep doing this. And now here I am. My daughter's 32.
That is awesome. I love it. I love it. I love it. But that's the thing. You had no place to go but up. You couldn't really go down, and you threw it out there. You weren't scared to get out and get your hands dirty, roll up your sleeves, and go to work. You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because when I look back at that first deal, if I had really truly understood what rehabbing and the level of rehab this house, my first person was a hoarder. And I did not know what a hoarder was till the TV shows came on. And I was like, oh, that was my first house, like to the walls, Florida. And I was like, wow, Barbara was a hoarder. No wonder her house was so bad. But I feel like if I'd taken a bunch of classes and had a bunch of education and knew all that, I'm not even sure I would have had the guts to do it. I think my naivete, is that how you say it? I think that was honestly my biggest asset. I had big cojones and I was super naive. And I was like, okay, well, worst case, I can like work at the Waffle House.
Right.
Dennis has already let me go. So that's the only place you can go from Denny's is Waffle House. Like that's it.
Yeah. I guess that makes the most, or IHOP these days. Who knows what's going on with that? Yeah. But you learn a lot about that, especially I think getting thrown in the fire like that at hoarder house. Definitely, it's like the worst of the worst to get through it. And once you've gone through that, like, hey, I can accomplish anything. A light rehab, a subject to deal, pretty easy to deal with once you've dealt with that stuff, huh?
I remember being in that house and there was just little tiny paths, and I'm thinking, well, what is this about? All this papers, and there was like hundreds of empty wine bottles and dog food and just so much stuff. And I just remember walking around this house and thinking, I can't even see the walls. I don't know what this house even looks like. It's going to take a lot of decorating to make this look good. I didn't know. I'd have to like strip it down to the drywall just about because all that stuff is soaked in. And oh my word. Until that show, Buried Alive, came on, I did not know what a hoarder was. Even to this day, I've done like 3 deals like that. Yeah. And I'm like, what is wrong with these people keeping all this crap? I didn't even know it was a thing.
So that's something you and I have in common. My first ever like appointment with a homeowner from a letter campaign ended up going to a hoarder house. It was just like that. And you're like, oh my God, I literally threw away the clothes I was wearing because it stunk so bad. They had 5 dogs that were just doing everything in the house and no food, no water for 4 months. And so, yeah, when you've gone through that, you're like, okay, the smell of, as they say, as Ron LeGrand is famous for quoting, the smell of shit and piss is the smell of money, right? Yeah,
well, that's true. That is one thing he does say that I do think is funny. I did another hoarder house a little bit later. I still didn't know what it was. This was 6 40-yard, and I think how much? 6 40-yard dumpsters. 6 40-yard dumpsters. So, and I just remember thinking, like, who on the face of the earth can even accumulate that much stuff in a lifetime? Like, how could you even have that much stuff? Yep. And even then, I still didn't know what hoarder was. I just thought, gosh darn, people are crazy.
So what helped you make the transition into doing more short sales or being such a big fan of subject to deals?
Well, you know what happened? I started off just rehab. Now, when I started, I was here in South Florida. There were not RIA groups yet. So there wasn't everything. If you wanted to find anything, everything was in the classified section of the newspaper. I have people in the audience sometimes, these kids are like, I've never actually held a newspaper. I was like, oh my God, if I had one right now, I'd smack you over the head with it. What do you mean you never touched a newspaper? So everything was in the paper. And so, I'm always looking at houses for sale, just different stuff. And I saw this ad that there was a brand new real estate investors group was going to meet over in Boca Raton. So I was like, hey, there'll be other people there like me, maybe. And so I go to this RIA group. And it's the first one in South Florida. There's 80 people there, and there's just me and one other woman, and it's all guys. Yeah. Like no women, just guys. And I was like, okay. But I start meeting people, and I start talking to people, and I tell them what I'm doing. And then throughout the course of several months, I start hearing people talk about wholesaling. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay, hang on a minute. I don't know this word. So I can get them under contract and sell them to a rehab or a landlord and not physically have to, because I'm still working on houses at this point.
Right.
And I'm like, holy cow, this is some nice slice of heaven over here. I can just wholesale this house. So I started wholesaling. My first deal, actually, I wholesaled 75 houses.
Wow.
I was a working machine and I was used to putting in the time and the hours. And I thought, okay, I want to just do a ton of them to really learn this, because this sounds better than fixing houses up. Because, I'm 5 years into this now. And, not that it's not great, but I'm just like, oh my God, my back, So I started wholesaling. And then it was really by accident, my first short sale. I had this house, and, on a deal, if you plan to make 5,000, like in your mind, it's already spent.
Yep.
I had this deal. I was going to make $5,000. The final documents came in, and there was a bunch of fees added. I was only going to make $1,000. Well, I was like, oh, I really need the whole five. So, and I can't bail because I can't let the homeowner lose their house. And I'm like, oh my God. And I don't want to do this for $1,000. So I called the bank up. I said, hey, listen, I went over these numbers. You got to knock some of these fees off. I can't close the deal. And the girl didn't even put me on hold. She's just like, okay, we'll do that. Just like that. Boom. Knocks off those fees. So my light bulb goes off and says, hang on a minute. I just got $4,000 worth of fees knocked off. I'm doing this till the end of time on every deal, because even $4,000 a deal. So I did it on the next one, did it on the next one. So I had like 5 deals under my belt. And still they weren't calling anything short sales. There wasn't like a term. It was just shorting, buying, discounting. Like there was not even a term really. And after about 4 or 5 deals, I thought, I wonder what would happen if I asked them to take less on the mortgage. So I very meekly was like, oh, what about like this little bit? And then I got a few of those. So then I thought, I had this house and they owed like 90,000, but it was my trash. And I thought, I'm going to offer 30 grand and see what happens. I offered $30,000, and the bank came back a week and said they would take it. I was like, oh my God, I just discovered something.
Right.
And it was like, there was no one teaching it. It was nobody talking about it. I started calling the bank. I said, let's short sale. And I actually trademarked it way back, and I wrote a book, and it's a supplement. It's called a supplemental trademark, because you can't trademark the term short sales because it applies in mortgages, it applies in a lot of industries. But as it applies to real estate investing, I was like, that's it. I am the queen of short sales.
Love it.
And I don't know, we've done like a jillion of them since, and our students, and it's a whole thing.
It is a whole thing. It's amazing how it's changed compared to when you started, and then the whole short sale chaos of 2008, 2009, 10, 11, how it was the Wild West beforehand. Then these banks were inundated. And I hate to say this, but I have to give Bank of America credit a little bit for coming up with their systems that kind of helped lead the industry a little bit. They were difficult to deal with. The what? The Equator system? Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. The Equator system, actually, I remember all the investors like, oh my God, you have to deal with the bank. You can't get the same person. You can't use all the things and buddy up with the people at the bank. Oh, it's going to be terrible. I would say, no, it's going to be so efficient because the bank's putting it in, the information's in there. No more FedExing, faxing. Like all that's gone now. How many times have you faxed the same package? 100 times. Oh, we don't have it. And I thought that was great. I was excited about that because it simplified it.
Yeah.
So, but I remember investors like, oh my gosh, because part of it is, you do work with the same bank rep a few times, and then they know you. Hey, Scott, Dwan, let's do another deal together. Oh, girl, but it kind of wiped that out. Yeah. It's like, but if you're doing a good job and you come back all your numbers, I felt like it made it a lot easier.
Yeah, it was a funny thing. I was dealing with doing a short sale on a property, and that was financed by Everhome Bank, and I got the head of the short sale department on the phone, Rachel Guile. I can remember her name. She sounded like she smoked like 4 packs a day. If I'm gonna bleed, everybody's gonna bleed, is what she told me. And it was funny. So I'm talking to her. I was like, well, hey, I asked her, I said, hey, do you want to come out to an event and talk about short sales? She's like, what? I don't know if I can do that. And it was just funny. It was just throwing that little oddball thing. I was like, okay, we'll accept your counter on that and go from there. And then I asked her, I said, so you live in Florida? How are you doing? She's like, you know what? Hang on. You're doing this professionally. You're helping people out. Me and all 8 of my employees, we need help. Can you help us short sale our own homes too?
That's the best ever right there.
And so that's how we got in tight with Everhome. Every deal we ever submit through Everhome got a better price point on it.
Oh my God, that's so good. I know. I used to tell people, like, listen, do not tell all these banks that you work with me, because I've worked with all these banks and I know all the bosses of loss mitigation, a lot of the banks. I'm like, do not say, I don't need 5,000 people saying Dwan taught me. It's like, don't mention, like, especially if they call like some of the banks where I really knew people high up. I was like, do not say anything about me. I don't
Don't name drop me.
What do you mean you are programming and teaching people across the country? Stop doing that.
That's one way to get blacklisted pretty quickly.
Oh, it really is. I didn't know. I was like, I don't know how much all these people talk within the office. Like, do not mention my name anywhere.
Yeah. So are you seeing an influx here of short sales in a lot of, compared to what it's been the last couple of years with everything that's been going on over the last 12 plus months?
You know, what's happening right now is people like today, you know, I know this call won't play today, but there's so many extensions on with the banks right now that people are taking advantage of that, you know, and some of them, you know, rightfully so, they're not working their money, unemployed, whatever. So I understand that. But what's going to happen is when the bank is like, okay, everybody has to start making payments again. I could be wrong, but I feel like a lot of people will put their house on the market.
Yeah.
And there'll be a whole bunch at one time, which will now take this market that's going like, woo, and go,
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Hang on a second. I got a sound effect for that. Hang on. It'll go from.
That's exactly it. And I know people are selling houses like hotcakes, and people are, but it's because the interest is so low. It's like, yeah, but the houses are getting bid up. And then are they really worth that much? And anytime like something crazy like that, like in 2008, all those liar loans, if you can fog the mirror, you can have a house. We'll give you 125% of the value of your house. Well, when all that came up to let's make a payment, it crashed and burned.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're on the cusp of another sort of crash and burn situation.
Yeah, homes are becoming so unaffordable. I mean, I think the president or chief economist for Redfin said there was like a $50,000 average increase across the country in pricing on new home sales out there.
All at one time.
Yeah.
That's not really warranted by anything.
Exactly. You know, so, but the counter side of that, if there's not that many short sales, is something that I'm passionate about, and I know you're a big passionate about, is subject to deals.
Oh my gosh, I know. I love subject to deals.
Let's talk about those. Let's talk about, why do you love them so much?
You know, I like stuff that's creative, first of all. So I like creative stuff. I know, you know, we rehab, we still do a lot of things like that. But for me personally, like the more creative a deal is, the more exciting personally that it is. But the thing about the subject twos is you have homeowners that are literally willing to walk away from their property. They can't afford it. They want to move. They want to be done with it, but they owe what it's worth or the condition or something. And maybe you cannot get a short sale. You can't do anything with it. And if you don't know about the option of a subject to, that person just moves off, loses their house, goes into foreclosures on the credit, you know, all that stuff happens to them. But you have a perfectly good house right there that you could sell to somebody else who doesn't mind paying exactly what it's worth. They don't mind paying a little bit more for the interest rate because something happened to them that they can't go to the bank anymore. So you feel like this giant void of people that want home ownership again and people that really do just, I'm done. And you fill a void in there, and there's just millions of houses that fall into that spectrum. And people, I don't feel like a lot of investors know that it's an option. A lot of times I do a workshop or something, and we're talking about subject twos. People have like this deer in the headlights. I don't know, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, we're getting the homeowner to deed the house to us. I'm selling it over here to this guy. I'm giving him a new mortgage. You know, I'm paying that one. This, as every month that goes by over here, this guy's credit gets better. Every month over here, this guy's working on his credit. And when it's all said and done, everybody wins.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the fact that you're helping the old person, the new person, yourself, and you're creating like 3 wins. And it's a win for the bank too, because the bank gets a defaulted asset off of their books too. So there's no lose for anybody.
Yeah, it is truly a great thing out there, because exactly like you said, the borrower that couldn't get it going through something, they want to walk away, they don't want the responsibility. Maybe it's a divorce. We've seen plenty of increases in divorces here in the last 12 months. I think that's a great starting point. Or people who are moving, or I think a big thing is if you've owned rental property in college towns that the kids aren't going back to school and they're doing remote learning now. I think that's a huge opportunity for you to pick up some subject to deals because it's usually a lot of out-of-state owners that don't want to deal with that headache now.
They don't. And it's funny when we do our workshops, I know you have to hear this. There's always 4 or 5 people in the audience that go, yeah, but what homeowner would just deed their house to you and walk away? And I said, well, first of all, if you were in that person's shoes and you were lost your income or your spouse or whatever, and you don't want to completely destroy your credit or just whatever, and someone will say, hey, I can help fix a little piece of your credit by making your payments on time for you, and I can give you X amount of money to move and start fresh. I said a lot of people, millions of people will say yes to that. But everyone's always, that's the first thing, like, who would do that? You got to be on the other side of the fence.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people will do it. And it just fills a big void that I don't think most people even know it's there.
Yeah. And you don't need a lot of cash. I mean, you may need a little bit of cash to catch up some of the arrearages. Yeah. You don't if you've got the low interest rate, it really comes down to what is the payment on it, PITI, versus what like market rents is, or what you could finance that property in a wraparound mortgage,
Yeah, wraparound. I love wraps.
Yeah, wraps are great.
Everyone says, what about the due on sale clause? It's like,
I was going to ask you that next. Exactly. What do you like to say to that?
Doesn't every single person ask you that? What about the due on sale clause? Not the homeowners. These are like the people sitting in, your audiences. The homeowners are just like, okay, tell me what to do. So we're big on, we use land trust. We have power of attorney. We have every document in the face of the earth from the homeowner and also from the person I sell it to. I have every document in the world, including I get a deed in lieu of foreclosure. So, and in their mortgage, it's real specific. If you don't make this many payments, I don't have to foreclose on you. I'm just going to file the deed and we're going to do cash for keys and we're going to shake hands and move on. I'm going to tell you something. We have done like 300 and maybe 70 subject twos, and not one single person has made me take them through the foreclosure process. I've had a few that called and said, hey, Dwan, Bill, listen, I can't make the payments. She said, if I could never make the payments, I could call you. And we'll give them my $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 to move and say, broom sweep on your way out. And then I just sell it again. But not one single person, I'm knocking on some wood here. Not a single person has like made us go through the foreclosure process, because as an investor, I know if they get some badass bankruptcy attorney, they could keep me tied up for a really long time. Yep. So we do deeds in lieu, like it's all, and I think disclosure, everybody knows what's happening. And as everybody knows what's happening, I feel like it's one of the greatest ways to make money.
It is. I think it's a great way to make money, and that whole deed in lieu and escrow sitting there, usually I love using that on a 90. If you get more than 90 days behind, hey, just go ahead. Let's get you to cash your keys and walk away and make it a win-win for everybody.
We do too. We do 60 days. We make the first phone call. Hey, listen, and it's like, if you can't make the payment next month, we're totally fine. We'll give you some money, just move out, and then that's it. But no, I feel really lucky that we've done that many, and not a single solitary person has avoided. They hide. People hide behind the phone. You can't reach them. You're like, but they just, I think it was just so honest and transparent with people. It's like, there's no shame in falling behind again. If something happens, just please let me know. Don't make me come after you, because that other side of Dwan, she's not so nice.
Yeah, she's not so Dwanderful at that point.
I'm not Dwanderful. My dad used to always say, like, listen, the thing about Dwan, she's the nicest person in the world. If you cross her, she's got ice running through them veins. I was like, Dad. He's like, well, that's just really the truth. I'm like, well, okay, it could be.
Now looking at, let's talk about the flip side of this. Is there something that you like on the underlying note, underlying mortgage that you're taking over subject to? What are some characteristics that you like? Equity, no equity, low interest rate? I know it varies a little bit.
Well, the one thing for us personally is that I always want to have a fixed interest rate.
Yep.
If it's not fixed, then I'm just because interest, you just don't know where that's going to happen. And once I give my new person a mortgage, I want their interest rate, fixed, solid. This is what the deal is. So I look for anything that obviously is fixed. The lower the interest rate, the better. But still, even if this person has a 4 or 5% interest rate, this person that cannot buy a house any other way, if they have to pay 7, they will.
Yep.
Ideally, this house over here has a little bit of history on it so that when I get out my new mortgage, this one doesn't come due before this one. I want to make sure there's a little bit of so what we do is we call it three things. We call it the front load profit. That is the money that this person gives me, and I give them a mortgage.
That would be for those that are listening. You can't see Dawn's hands, but that would be the person that is looking for a house. They're looking to buy a house that Dawn is owner financing them to the subject to deal. So they're giving you the down payment. And what kind of down payment are you looking for?
Dwan,
I'm sorry. So sorry about that, Dwan.
It's okay. I'm telling you, it's a Southern thing. We do houses about 200,000. That's like our range of where we're at. So we have about 200,000 our houses. So I really try to find people like $15,000 or $20,000 down. Yep. And people are always like, well, who has that? There is a shocking amount of people that have that much money down. These are people that, maybe a couple generations of living together now. They're all pooling money. I mean, I've never had anybody that couldn't come up with $15,000 down ever. And people, well, they could buy a house. No, they can't. They have something that happened in their credit and they can't buy a house, but they want to. So my ideal deal, I would get 20,000 down. And even if I have to make 10,000 in back payments to the person losing a house, I'm still putting 10,000 in my pocket. So we have what we call the upfront, the front load profit. So the front load profit is the difference between my homeowner in distress, whatever their mortgage payments might be behind, and the deposit my new person is giving me. Then we have the deferred profit, and the deferred is the difference on the money every single month. And it might be $300, $400, $500 per month. And then we have what we call the back end profit, the back load profit. The back end profit is the difference from my original mortgage to the one I gave my new person. So we have 3 separate paydays. And if you really kind of summarize and look back at the deals, I feel like the average deal's got about $50,000 in it. Mm-hmm. It's really easy to get, 10 to 20, upfront. If you're making $300 or $400 a month for 5 years or 6 years, that's like another 20 grand. Yep. And then cash out is like another 10 or 10, 5, 10, 15, 20 there. It's really easy to make $50,000 or $60,000 on what appears to be a no equity deal. So I have a program called No Equity Equals Big Bucks. And people are like, what does that mean? I was like, because all these no equity deals, the average investor just passes because they don't know that there's literally $50,000 sitting there and 2 people that both need help.
And being a deal artist can really hit it out of the park because you're putting somebody who's got a need to walk away, get that financial burden off their plate, divorce, death, job loss, moving, whatever it might be. And you're dealing, serving a need to somebody out there, business owners, doctors, people that, a lot of professionals that make good money, but they can't afford it because their business regimen or paying their own bills doesn't happen on time because they're good at being doctors, not paying.
Exactly.
And
it's funny because we have, I've done a lot of deals, especially in Colorado, because there's the Army bases, naval bases are out there. We've had a lot of people that have called and said, listen, I've never missed the payments. I have to move in 2 weeks, and they will give us their house as in perfect shape. It does not even behind 30 days. And I just don't want my credit to be destroyed. And we get these houses that are beautiful, just beautiful houses. But I am very strict on making sure this person over here signs everything, including like adopting their firstborn son over to me. And I make sure that this person over here has no wiggle room whatsoever. If they default, it's fine. I'm happy to do that, but no one's going to drag me through the ringer because that's just not happening. Right. I'm happy to help everybody.
Now, what's on the average time frame? Are you doing it for a 30-year wrap, or are you doing it like a 5-year, 7-year? What's kind of the time frame that you're seeing people?
So we amortize them out 30 years. Yep. Now, we used to have a 5-year balloon, but the whole Dodd-Frank screwed that
exactly,
up. Yeah. So up until then, I had an absolute 5-year balloon, and then if you needed to extend it, we had to redo documents. You had to pay extra points again, and we'll start again. But so I tell the homeowner that is signing the house to me, we're going to try to have your name off the mortgage in the next 5 to 7 years. We try not to go past 7. I mean, at some point, even though they're hating it now, they are going to want to buy another house.
Yep.
They are. They right. I'm never buying another house again. But we know when the anger settles, They do. And this guy over here, I'm like, listen, if you can't get your credit squared away in the next 5, 6, 7 years, then you've got something going on over there too. So I don't have an actual, like, the exact day that you have to pay it off, because I can't force that.
Right.
But everyone understands that at the 5-year mark, you best be qualifying and refinancing this house out, because if it goes past that, then we're going to restructure what we have going on.
Well, and that's a beautiful thing too. You keep them at an interest rate. I mean, people can't go out and get a low interest rate. Don't give them something they can't go get. 6, 7%. That's the carrot dangling in front of them to work on their credit score, to make payments on time. And if they make 2 years of payments to you, and you can show that, that's a pretty easy thing for them to go get refinanced out. And
a lot of investors don't know, like, we can put all those good payments on their credit report. Exactly. So I can say, listen, you make 24 payments to me, I'm going to put all that on. Your credit's going to go through the roof. Over here, every month past all those payments you miss, it helps restore. So we're restoring and getting paid in the middle.
That's right, baby. That's right.
Making that money. I love subject-to deals.
Right. Oh, yeah. When you know how to structure them and you got everybody sign off on everything, it is a beautiful way to make lemons into lemonade, and really sweet tasting lemonade out there.
I think that, I know we're lunch on time, but I honestly feel, so anyone that's listening that's new, I don't know if they've listened to you already, they've heard you say this too, but I feel like the most daunting thing for a new investor with subject twos is people are afraid of the paperwork.
Yeah.
Because it is, you got to really paper both sides up. And I think that might keep a lot of people from trying. It's like, oh, I don't know, it's a lot of paperwork. What about, I don't know, I don't really understand what all these things are. But really, if you just follow somebody like you or me that does it, that here's your papers, and you do everything right, it is one of the easiest things. Is you don't need money, you don't need credit, you don't need a real estate license. You really just need someone like you or me to say, hey, here's how you do it, and off you go. And you're not a landlord. So
that's right. You're the bank.
Do that?
You're being the bank. You're putting yourself as the bank. Nobody calls the bank for the air conditioner that bought. The new owner of the house is responsible for repairs, responsible for taxes. That's the same thing.
Nobody calls the bank and says, oh, my grandkids came over and stuffed this stuff down on the toilet. Can you unplug it? They don't call the bank for that.
No, they don't. Thank goodness. They don't call you when the AC goes out, when it's 100 degrees out in the middle of July either, too, there for you.
They don't. I'm just such a huge fan of subject twos, and I love talking about them and exposing people to them, because there's so much money there.
Yeah. Dwan, you guys, you've been teaching this for a while. You've got classes and workshops on this specifically too, don't you?
Yeah, we do. We have programs, we do webinars. When live workshops come back, I actually really love doing live workshops, because I like meeting my students and I like working with people. So I have to say, I really miss that. Just like, my people, I can't hug anybody. But we have programs and the whole thing like that, because I'm just a big fan of it. My husband and I are just a really big fan of doing it. And it is a nice way for people to get monthly income without having to be a landlord. It's like with your note buying, people get those notes structured out. You can build a gigantic millions of dollars a year cash flow and never owned anything.
Yeah. And it's not based on your credit. You're not based on credit. You don't have to do financing. You're using your end buyer to be the money guy, and it's a total win-win across. But that's why I love them so much, especially right now with such low record interest rates the last couple of years, and people in distress out there. It's a great strategy.
Yeah, I agree. And like I always tell people, because people don't want to be a landlord. It's like, I don't either. I get it. I've had those phone calls. And I was like, what?
Now, Dwan, you've got a podcast out there, and it's just rocking and rolling, doing some amazing stuff out there. What is the best way for our listeners out in Note Nation to follow up with you, to listen or connect with you? What's the best way they like?
They can go to my website, which is Dwanderful.com, Dwanderful, because I'm Dwanderful, Dwanderful.com. And then my podcast is called The Most Dwanderful Real Estate Podcast Ever.
We'll put links to that.
I can't have fun with my name and my show and all my stuff. Like, really, what's the point? But for anyone that would opt in at my site, I have 4 free ebooks. They're small ebooks. One's on wholesaling, short sales, a little bit of scripts, a little bit of, just kind of giving people like, hey, here's a few things you can sort of dip your toe in and see what you like.
And that's important because it's, we don't try to do everything, try to focus on a couple things. Now, you guys are also doing a major rehab job on a town in Iowa. Let's talk about that. I love that story. Let's hear about this.
You know what? You're going to love this, how this started. So you will especially love this. So my husband's from this town called Clinton, Iowa. It's a little town on the river. And it's just one of those downtowns. It's only 3 blocks wide and 3 blocks deep. And it's a little town where literally time just stopped. Like the doctors, everything have been down there forever and there's no activity. So we're going back to all these reunions, and the long and short, we start being like, oh, this town needs a little love. Like, maybe we could buy a couple buildings. So we contact someone from the city and find out that it is an opportunity zone, and they're doing like a city re-beautification to rejuvenate the downtown. They just need some investors to come in and buy up all these buildings that have literally, some of them have been sitting there for a decade, just boarded up. Like it looks like a ghost town. So we have a family friend. So sometimes it's just who you know, and it's just God's stroke of luck. So we have a family friend, his name at the time, Dwayne, and sadly he passed away a few years ago, but he was 94. So my husband's from there. He knew my husband's dad. And Dwayne's like, so we bought this one building. He says, hey, listen, I know this lady over here that owns that building. It's a 3-story. This one building is one entire block.
Wow.
He goes, her husband passed away. She doesn't really want the building anymore. I could just hook you up on a phone call and see what happens. So we call her up. We started talking to her. She doesn't want to take care of the building anymore. Her husband passed away. She's like 80 years old. She says, well, there's another lady in town. We just want to move to Florida. So we talk to her and we get her to structure 100% owner financing deal. She doesn't care about the money. She just wants the payments, so she wants to move to Florida. So we get this house, and this is a giant building. This is a massive building, and needs a lot of work. A couple months go by, I get a phone call from one of her friends. She goes, hey, listen, you made payments over there on time. I've got 3 buildings. My husband passed away. I'm willing to give you the same kind of deal, but you got to take all 3. And I was like, no money down. You'll carry a note. I'll mail you a check to Florida. Okay, we'll take those 3. Another lady called. She's like, I have 2. They're all friends. They're all in their 80s. All of them have outlived their husbands, and none of them want their buildings. So we ended up getting the 1 and then 3 more and then 2 from these women talking. And they're like, we're all moving to Florida together. Don't miss a payment and don't ever make us come back to Clinton, Iowa. And they all financed everything. And I was like, wow, you can't even say no. So then the bank called and said, hey, we've got 2 buildings that we've owned for years. No one's ever bought them. We'll sell them to you. Like, no, we don't want to buy them from the bank. They're like, okay, we'll just finance them for you. We'll just create a mortgage. If you'll make us a payment, and they just structured those. I'm like, okay, Bill, listen, we ought to stop buying buildings. Like now we have 10. We were going to buy 1. And then another guy down the street was retiring. So we went and talked to him, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm walking away. I'm just ready to go. I'm ready to retire. And we're like, well, want to get rid of your building? He's like, hey, you can have my building. And just, so I swear to God, they just keep falling in our lap. And we're like, okay, we have to stop buying buildings. But now we have 15, and we're actually putting in some businesses in a few of them. We have a lot of commercials. And the great thing, Scott, is a lot of the spaces have commercial, and during COVID, nobody had to shut down. Everybody kept making their payments. But what we did is if we have a hairdresser, we have a few things, and they were able to stay open in Iowa, but they have been in that building like a decade. And I said, you know what? So we gave everyone like 3 months. We said, we're just going to give you 3 months. We're happy you're in the space. You don't owe us any money. Just take that and, and start making payments in a couple months. And everybody stayed open. Everybody was so grateful. And I'm like, I'm not going to what am I going to evict someone that's been there 10 years because of COVID? But I also don't want to sit there with a building with nobody making payments. So we gave everybody all kinds of breaks and did all kinds of things that we didn't need to do, that it was the right thing to do. And everything just kept rocking. We opened 3 businesses during the pandemic.
I love it. Now, are all of them occupied? Or you're rehabbing some of them, or all basically?
I think at this point, we've got 2 that are still not occupied. One we're finishing up this month. Actually, it'll be open. It's going to be like an indoor farmers market. I've already got 100 vendors lined up for space. Wow. And all the other spaces in all of our buildings, every one of our spaces is full. Because a lot of people heard that we were so good and they left their building and came to our building. Literally. We don't have a single vacant space at any, and we have a waiting list. And during a pandemic, but people were like, well, we heard you gave them 3 months. You did this, you did that. Our landlords, like, they didn't do anything for us. And a lot of people were out of their leases and they moved into our buildings.
I love it.
Just the goodness came back. But I'm telling you what, when that second woman called and said she had 3, I was like, it's going to put us at 6 buildings, Bill. And then there was one more. I was like, oh my God, that's 8. Like, where's the line?
Right.
But the good thing is, because we bought, some other out-of-state investors saw activity. I think 7 or 8 buildings have been purchased recently by other companies that wouldn't come in until we came in. Mm-hmm. So now the town is like bustling. Like today, there's a thing going on. There'll be 2,000 people down in town because they have a wine walk, and every single store gives out free samples of wine. And I was like, oh my God, the whole town will be drunk today.
Getting drunk in Clinton, Iowa.
So I know this will come on later, but check out when they have a wine walk. I'm telling you, it's worth the drive over to the town to go there because every business gives out food, wine, samples, just to get you downtown. I can tell you what, it is the biggest party you've ever seen. It's crazy.
That is awesome. That's such an awesome thing there for you. So cool. Kudos to you guys. Keep up the good work. I'm sure the value of this properties has skyrocketed now since you got cash flow and NOI and cap rates are going through the roof there for you, which is awesome.
Yeah, we were actually going to sell a couple of them. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to sell them. I want to keep them and pass down that generational wealth to our kids and our grandkids. And even my little grandkids, we bought for their birthday, each one of them got like a gumball kind of candy machine, and we put them in the buildings. So now they go to Iowa, like, I'm going to go check on my investments. and they started 6-year-old granddaughter, she got a key, she opens her machine, takes all of her quarters out, she goes and buys candy or whatever, puts it in and puts the rest in a bag, and she's like got a bag of money.
Gotta love it. Love it, love it, love it. Dwan, this has been awesome. It's been such a good time today with you. Look forward to hanging out with you some more. She's gonna be one of our guest speakers on our upcoming Note Camp convention, everybody, here in a couple months here. So we're looking forward to her coming on, teaching more on.
Thank you, Scott.
Oh, no, honored to have you guys. Make sure you give Bill a high five for me. Say hi for him as well.
I will.
Good stuff there. Well, guys, go take some action. Check her out. Check out her podcast. Check out her website. She's got 4 of those giveaways for you guys and learn some stuff. She's been the most wonderful guest, as we know. A lot of energy. Check out the most wonderful real estate podcast out there. And we'll see you guys all at the top, everybody. Be safe. See y'all later.